Hello everyone, I want to talk about this CVE 2024-9441 affecting linear eMerge E3 series that VulnCheck actually published last week. VulnCheck became interested in this device a couple of weeks ago when the NSA, the FBI, and a few others issued this joint release about a botnet that Flax Typhoon had built using known vulnerabilities. And one of those known vulnerabilities affected the linear eMerge series. And the specific vulnerability was CVE-2024-9441. And this is actually a well-known vulnerability. It's been in KEV since March of this year, and it would have been in VulnCheck KEV all the way back to 2020. If we look at the reported VulnCheck reported exploitation list, we see that almost daily it's exploited in Shadow Server. But more importantly, we can scroll all the way down and we found this SonicWall blog back in February 2020 that specifically mentions that this is being exploited in the wild. We also have earmarked quite a few exploits for this. I think it's 11, but I want to call out specifically the nuclei template because the nuclei template comes with a Shodan query, like they often do. So this is it. This is how it looks on Shodan. You can see there's almost 12,000 results, which is pretty interesting for a device that's sort of very niche, I guess. But this does have a problem, specifically this PHP session ID. If we search specifically for that, we see we get almost 10,000 results. But they're all cloud hosted, and this is not a cloud hosted system. So these are all honeypots. So of our almost 12,000 devices, almost 10,000 of those are honeypots. So we have to filter those out. So a query to filter those out looks something like that. Sorry, give a Shodan a couple seconds to load here. You see that it significantly knocks down the total amount of devices that are believed to be online, but there is still a problem here in that this last modified should not be today. The last modified date should be the last time the firmware was updated, and these were not updated today. So you actually have to filter even further to get rid of these systems that say they were filtered recently, that they were updated recently. So let's just find whatever was updated in 2023, and we get like a much smaller set of devices. So the team was very interested in this Flax Typhoon release, and we deep dove what is actually vulnerable online, and found basically nothing is still vulnerable to this from the set of real devices. So that's good to know, that Flax Typhoon can't hurt you anymore. Except just a couple of weeks ago, SSD Disclosure issued this advisory for the linear eMerge E3 series, and there's this is a OS command injection, and the vendor has not fixed it. So that stinks, and they went ahead and released an exploit and no CVE. So we were doing work on this E3 series stuff. We saw this. We decided we would issue a CVE to make up for SSD not doing it. And we also developed our own exploit. But before I get into that, the day after we issued a CVE, so this is our exploits API endpoint. The very next day, someone else went ahead and threw up an exploit on GitHub. So people are watching this. I would imagine it's going to be exploited in the wild if it hasn't already. I want to quickly talk about what we did. So this is from our initial access product, and this is the top level README for the CVE that just describes the issue. And you can see nothing too exciting here. We do get execution as the web server, and we have two PCAPs for this. And these are just generic, generic command injection that you can just test a host with, or this one's the web shell. Generic echoing to disk, and the way that looks like in Go, so you can see here that this is the actual command injection. It's just using an ampersand in echo to write to disk. You could do a straightforward command injection here and do a reverse shell or whatever. We followed what SSD did and dropped a web shell because a web shell is kind of useful, especially on embedded devices. You can come back as you please. This one has an interesting caveat in that it needs to be in an index.html file, or the web server is not going to pick it up. So we also drop ours in image. So that has two downsides. One is someone can very easily overwrite your web shell, and it's very easy to scan the internet and see if the image/index.html exists. It should 404. If it exists, you have a web shell on your system. But we're just using this minimal Git web shell that we have in Go exploit, and we're sending it disk, and that's it. We do for our customers. We did give them snort and Suricata signatures, so hopefully people will start defending against this. Last time for the 2019 vulnerability, the vendor did not issue a patch for a long time. So I would not actually expect anything to be patched anytime soon. If you do have customers that have these online, definitely get them to get them offline. But I think the target set's quite small overall. But it is an interesting little bug, and it will probably be used by more threat actors. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening.